I recently saw this visual from Ann Emery. And what I liked about it was the fact that we are comparing performance to a target. And what they've done here is separated the below performance and above performance by space, and they have the target line. So Ann gave instructions on how to create this, but a lot of it was manual work. And so what I want to show you in this video is how to use formulas to automate everything so that when the data changes next month, because you and I both know, if you show your boss a visual that they like, they're going to make you produce it every single month. So I want to show you how to automate it using some formulas within Excel. So what I've done here as an example is I've set up a performance against a target. So let's say this is, let's say fulfillment at different distribution centers. We've got our different distribution locations here and their performance in the past month. Our target is 95%. So here's what I do in terms of setting up my spreadsheet. Let me show you a few things here. So first is I set up this helper cell, which is target and 95%. Then in the actual data that comes in that you've gathered, your analysis sheet, whatever it is, the first thing I do is I actually put the target as the first item in that list. The reason for that is when we sort it in a moment, it will sort based on the value, and then secondarily, it sorts it based on the order that it was in the original set of data. So if you have anything that is exactly the same as the target value, you want that to be below, so it'll be to the left in the chart, because it actually meets the target. So I put that in, and you'll notice here, I'll just zoom in on the formula here for you. I'm not copying the values, I'm using formulas to do that. So I do that for both the target and the number, and then I simply copy in this set of values from the sheet that I've got. Now we need to sort it. Well, one of the things that people do sometimes is they will sort it manually. I don't suggest you do that. You could use the sort function, but then every time the data changes, you have to remember to redo that. So what I suggest you do instead is use the sort array function. So you'll notice here is that I click on this first cell in this array, A19, and you'll notice it lights up all of those cells because this one cell has the formula. And then it's known as an array formula. So it fills in the cells around it with the data. And I'm using the sort array function. If you want to use this and understand how the various parameters work, let me go in into the formulas, and it's under the lookup and reference. And I'll go down to sort here and just bring it up for you so you can see. So the first thing you choose in this is the array, so the range of cells that you want to sort. Then you'll say the sort index. So the sort index says what of the rows or columns do you want to use as that sorting value. And then the sort order could be ascending or descending. In my case, I wanted ascending, which is the default. And then this by call allows you to sort by row or by column. Now, this is kind of interesting because normally you are sorting simply by row. So all the rows, you sort them, but you could sort it by column as well. So it's a really, really good formula to use, function to use when you want to do a sort. And the nice thing is when the data changes, it automatically reevaluates and resorts. So that's what I've done is I've put the sort, and you'll notice the target gets sorted in here. That's going to be important. Now I will go down and set up my chart data table, which is in here. And I've, again, got the location simply using that label. Now what I've done here, a few things. First of all, I have two data series, below and above. This is because I want to format the below and the above separately. I don't want to have to manually change the colors of formatting. I want it to be done automatically because next month when the new data comes in, I just want to be able to paste the data in and everything changes. Then I have my target. My preference is to have the target line be on both left and right of the columns and just had it only extending over to the right. I prefer on both sides, just a choice there. And then what I've done here is I have set up formulas to fill in the data table. So what it's doing is it's looking at the location and saying, first of all, is the location the target? Because if it is, then we don't want a label down on that horizontal axis. Most of the time it isn't. There's only one that's the target. So we put that label in, and then we evaluate which of the two columns, the below or the above, do we need to use. And I'm going to zoom in on the formula here for you again, just so you can see it. And what I've done here is I say if the value is lower than the target, and that's what the and function does, the location is not the target, then put in the value. Otherwise, put in this NA error value. Now, you might be wondering, why would I want an NA error value? Isn't that going to give me an error? Well, it does give you the hashtag NA error, but what that does in a chart is it just does not chart that particular value, which is great because here we want either a value in the below or in the above data series. We're never going to have one in both. And for the above, it is greater than or equal to. So anything that is equal to, I'm saying it is equal or above the target because you've met the target. You're not below the target. So all those get filled in, and here is our row 35, where the target label, A22, does match my helper cell E5 here. And since it matches, it doesn't put a location name in there. This allows us to then have on our chart here this blank between the below and the above. The blank row is at the top and the bottom here. That's what helps the dashed line extend, the target line extend to the left and the right. So this is the data for the chart. This is all driven by formulas. So if the data changes, all of these formulas change. The sorting changes, what's below, what's above changes, everything changes. You could even change the target and it will even change because, again, this is a formula. And then everything is just set on the formulas. So everything can change, the target, all the data, and the chart automatically updates. So how do we use this chart data table to create, this is the chart, the final chart here. So let me show you how you have to create this chart. And there's a couple of things that you'll notice Excel doesn't guess at correctly here. I'm going to select all of my data. I'm going to say insert, a regular column chart here. And you'll notice that it does not figure out that the location, that first column, is actually what's supposed to be along the x-axis. So I'm going to go on my chart design ribbon to select data. And I'm going to edit where the horizontal, the category axis labels are. So I'm going to click on edit and I'm going to select those cells in that first column. Say OK. Then I'll go to this location data series that it thinks is a data series and I say remove that. Now I can click OK and it has now figured out how to do this. So one of the things when you are working with multiple data series and only one of them is going to be used at a time, is you can make those columns overlapping because one of them is not going to be there anyways. I've selected my chart. I'll select one of the columns in there. I'll press Control 1. And you'll notice on the task pane on the right-hand side, I'll zoom in here so you can see this. You'll notice we can choose our series overlap. And the series overlap normally is -27, which means they're spread apart. What I'm going to do is I'm going to increase that to the maximum. You notice the maximum is 100, and now they overlap each other. So that gets us our overlapping columns. But one of the problems we have here is that our target is a column still. It is not a line. So the way that we solve that issue, I'll close my task pane here, is right-click on any of the columns and say Change Series Chart Type. We go into the combination chart type and we change our target here from clustered column to our line. And you'll notice the preview shows us that right away. I can click OK. The columns, I can make them a lot wider by, again, selecting any column, press Control 1, and I can say my gap width here, instead of 219%, that's more space than actual columns. I'm going to set that, let's say, to 25%. That makes them nice and wide. Also, in this particular graph, you want wider columns because if you're going to put the data labels in those columns, you need enough space for those data labels. Now I simply change that target line to, on the formatting, I can change it to, say, a medium gray. I can make it dotted. And now you can start to see it. We're starting to see the two sets of columns, the below and the above. Of course, I don't need my legend here. I don't need grid lines. And then one of the other big things that Ann talked about, and you'll see it, I'll just move this out of the way. You'll see it here is that because I know that in this particular set of data, anything below 80% would never really happen. It just, I mean, we would have had to close a particular distribution center, and that's not what we're showing here. So what I've done is to make sure that the audience can see how much above or below the target each of these locations has scored in the last month. I've set the minimum to 80, the maximum to 100, and then the gap to be 20. What this is, I call it a minimalist axis. It only has a lower and an upper range. And the way we do that is I'm going to select that axis. I'm going to press Control-1. And in the task pane here, I'll zoom in again, you'll notice it has minimum and maximum. So I'm going to set the minimum to 0.8. The maximum will stay as 1, and then the major units is going to be the difference between the maximum and the minimum. So I'm going to put it to 0.2. And now we have that 0, 8 to 1. And now it's just a matter of setting the number here to be a percentage instead of a regular number, and 0 for decimal places. So now you can start to see it really coming together, looking very similar to our chart over here. So I'll just move that out of the way, because I wanted to show you, last thing I wanted to show you is that all the text in this chart is driven from the data, and it changes. So these data labels are simply data labels put inside the column. So the target here, it is a data label on this last point. So I'll select just the last data point. Then I'll say show data labels, more options, so I can bring up the task pane. And you'll notice it's the series name and the value separated by a new line. That is what gives it 2 lines for the particular data label there. And so all of the text is driven by the data. So for example, let's say I go up and next month, Atlanta, instead of being 97.5, didn't have such a great month. Let's say they're at 92.5. So I put in 92.5%, hit enter. And what you'll notice is the sorting changes automatically, the data changes, the colors change, the labels change. Everything changed simply by changing that one data point. If I hit Control-Z to undo, it all goes back to the way it was. Atlanta's up here in the green. Now you can create, using formulas, you can create a chart that automatically updates itself every single time there's new data. So every month, new data, new chart. You can save yourself a ton of time doing this simply by using the sort array function and some of the other formulas and functions that I've shown you. This can be a great addition to your data viz toolkit when you're using Excel. If you found this video helpful, please check out some of the other videos on my channel for more instruction on how to create different visuals that are both data visuals or visuals in PowerPoint. Thanks for watching.